Hi there, and welcome back. I'm Maddie, and this is Great Quest for Knowledge. Today I wanted to do a bit more of a deep dive into tarot. So today we're going to be focusing on the Major Arcana. This is going to be in addition to the video I already made last week, which is Tarot 101. Really brief cursory basics, but something that's a good step to learn if you want to continue to learn tarot. I'm going to try my best to keep this as easy as possible, and one of the best ways I've found to learn the tarot is to actually learn them like a story. The Major Arcana includes 22 cards, and they are the most powerful cards, so these are going to be the strongest. So if you find yourself having a Major Arcana card with a Minor Arcana card, the Major is the most important, of course. Whereas the minor is just going to give the context of what the major card is saying. The 22 cards that make up the Major Arcana are numbered 0 to 21. However, the Fool may or may not be numbered as 22 instead of 0. And this is just because the story of the Fool, or the Fool's journey, is cyclical. It's something that continuously happens. It is not a linear time frame. The Fool's journey represents something that we all go through, and we often go through multiple times in our life. And just as a quick reminder, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please be sure to hit the subscribe button. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you like my content. It really helps support my channel, and I really appreciate it. If you're interested, I also have a Patreon I'm starting. At the lowest tier, it includes a pagan book club, but you can definitely show the love and support by just giving a thumbs up or commenting down in the comments section. I definitely like hearing what you guys think and what works for you. But without further ado, let's get into tarot cards. The Fool makes up the first card in the Major Arcana. He is the most potential because he hasn't started his journey yet. And he's so full of ignorance that he doesn't have this worldly knowledge yet. He hasn't stepped foot outside to start his journey, and his card is often depicted as looking very reckless or foolish, as he's just in his own little world doing his own thing out of complete innocence. He hasn't learned any of life's lessons yet. When you get this card, it signifies letting go and taking that first step, the leap of faith. It may also mean that you are acting without thought, because again, you haven't learned those lessons yet. You can only do that if you take the first step. On the Fool's journey, he comes upon the Magician and the High Priestess. They represent the duality of what we face every day. What is our reality? So the Magician is very realistic. He's going to be a certain power and resourcefulness. Because it represents the real world, it's really focused on the energy into initiating new projects. And he is the bridge of the spiritual plane into the solid, real plane of existence. With that practicality, it's very skilled and hands-on, so it may represent one's potential abilities as well as emerging talent. The Magician is associated with Mercury, and the High Priestess is associated with the Moon. So she also represents the other side of our reality, the very spiritual, intuitive nature, as well as wisdom and femininity. I very much think of this card as representing that sort of as within, so without, the other side of as above, so below, being that the inward changes are what are going to reflect your outward worlds. Now, while the Fool has learned some lessons about his reality, he continues on his journey and meets the Emperor and the Empress. The Empress is going to be very much the Venus energy, also very feminine. She's typically depicted by being a mother or being pregnant in the card. And this is because she's representing fertility as well as love and beauty. I would say this is probably the more feminine cards in the deck. These divine feminine aspects are going to typically represent a person in your life or aspects of yourself that you need to call upon. The Emperor is very much this authority figure, maybe fatherly, but not necessarily in the coddling, comforting kind of way. He's a bit more stern, but this is helpful in giving guidance, especially in financial matters. This is a card that provides structure and support. And so it's very conducive to accomplishment as well as ambition. And this is going to be another card that is likely going to represent a strong male figure this time in your life, or maybe it's an aspect of yourself you need to call upon for the situation. The Hierophant. The Hierophant is going to be the other side of basically the High Priestess. I don't mean that in an energetic way, but the word Hierophant is essentially a male version of a High Priestess. In tarot, the guidance of these male and female figures have really developed the Fool on his journey. And so as he continues down, he finds the Hierophant, who is able to teach him wisdom and divinity. This is very traditional, practical wisdom. It's also control over spiritual needs, so it may suggest conformity. After the Hierophants, the Fool meets the Lovers. The Lovers card is not so specifically love and the coupling of two people, but it is more specifically choosing good decisions for another person and keeping another person in mind. It's more about the harmony and the union between people, and it doesn't have to be in a romantic setting whatsoever. This is where the Fool can learn to be selfless and make choices for another person, knowing that his actions can affect that other person. And then we have the Chariot. This represents determination and willpower, a journey to new places, and boldly venturing into the unknown. This is a good lesson that the Fool has learned so far, as he is no longer whimsically going about his process of wandering. He is more specifically on a journey, moving towards a destination with a sense of purpose. And that's what this card represents. Next we have the Strength card. Most typically in the imagery there's going to be a lion somewhere, whether or not that's boldly featured, and this is because it's associated with Leo. It represents desires and instincts. So this card is really big on courage and passion, as well as persistence. It does have a little bit more of a focus on loving your enemy and working through to a goal, rather than specifically fighting your enemy tooth and nail to get what you want. Now the Fool continues to learn some really great aspects that make him no longer this very frivolous, clueless creature, but he still has a lot to learn, especially about himself. And this is where on his journey he meets the Hermit. The Hermit teaches him more inner knowledge and spirituality specific to the highest self. This card reminds us that inner wisdom comes with seclusion sometimes. It also reminds us that sometimes it's important to go against the grain. It includes hidden knowledge and secrecy as well. The Wheel of Fortune is next, and this is one of those cards that isn't particularly negative. However, it does come at unexpected times, because the Wheel of Fortune is going to be a reminder that nothing is permanent. Things are always changing, and through this spontaneous action, even if it seems negative at first, it can bring about a great change later on that might not have happened if that change wasn't initiated for you. This card speaks to fate and destiny as well. Next is the Justice card. This card is associated with Libra. It is the absolute balance and a reminder that actions have consequences, but it also suggests a favorable conclusion if it is deserved. I like to think of this as a balance of strong character and fairness. Next we have the Hanged Man. Now, you may notice the Hanged Man is never hanging by his neck. People panic a little bit when they pull this card and they don't know what it means. He's usually hanging by his foot, and he doesn't really seem to mind. It's not an ordeal right now. He's just in this waiting pose. And this is a reminder to let go of things you can't control. It is especially a time to wait and maybe get a change of perspective. While you should be in this state of suspension, this is a great time to gain more knowledge of a situation by not making changes. And really, when you look at him, he looks very apathetic with no need to change what he's doing. And though it may represent opportunities going by and time missed, this is really a focused period of rest. That way you're not going down a path that you don't want to go down. Next on the Fool's Journey is the card of Death. This in no way means a literal death, and this is another card that people also panic when they receive. But this is the death of specifically bad habits. It is a metaphorical loss and a change of ways. This is a very, very good sign, especially if you are getting rid of things that don't serve you anymore. This card is absolutely a blessing in disguise. The Death card can also be associated with the Phoenix. Next we have Temperance. This card really represents balance, moderation, and patience. Now the Devil card is next, and once again we have one of the scary cards, but it's not. This card represents temptation into more base natures. This may also represent misdirected passions, and I really think of this card as oppression by material bondage. So if you are far too attached to your material belongings, and they hold more value to you than more important things like goals, people, this is what the card really signifies. When you see this card, you already know that it's a good idea to get more grounded, more realistic with goals, and what's truly important to you and what truly matters. Now, of all the cards so far that sound not so fun to get, this one is not one I love getting. The Tower represents sudden change, typically disaster. It may be a shock of this ginormous loss, or maybe it's just something small, but it does represent the collapse of an idea. Something that you really thought you were going to be doing. Maybe you took all this time, planned it out. Maybe it's something you worked for years. And now all of a sudden, you have to completely change what you thought you were going to be doing. This can be a great upheaval into the status quo, but the best way to think about this card, if you get it, is going to be about, again, that cyclical nature of everything. Even if we go through these really low points, nothing is permanent. The Star is going to be appropriately the calm after the storm. And this is so appropriate right after the collapse of something like the Tower card. This is a great chance for the Fool to gain new clarity and an opportunity for rewards as well as alignment. This card seems to really represent spirituality, inspiration, and serenity. It is also fulfillment in life's pleasures. The Moon. This is going to be associated with Pisces, and it is very very much like an illusion and psychic or intuitive dreams. It may represent an unseen dilemma, and it really deals with the subconscious. But again, this is the biggest focus on dreams and the subconscious. And next we have the Sun. This is the enlightenment and success in the journey. The Fool has learned a lot so far, and now he can take a moment for rest and recuperation. This card represents positivity and warmth, play and recuperation, and appreciation. I really think of this card and the warmth of the Sun as this pure and joyful moment. And on this long journey, the Fool really deserves it. We still have Judgment, which is going to represent more conscious decisions and accountability for one's actions. It may be new beginnings or awakenings. This card is associated with Pluto, and it may also represent a higher calling. And last we have the World. This is a conclusion and a celebration. It is the completion of the journey, and it represents a successful outcome over adversity. This has been a long journey for the Fool, and he's finally come to an end here with all the knowledge he's gained. But again, remember that this is cyclical. There may be another aspect, another journey he needs to go on, and it's more representative of ourselves and the journeys that we go through when we're trying to accomplish new things. Or maybe there are different periods in our life. Now, I'm not saying that you'll go through all of these, and nor am I saying that you'll go through them in this specific order, but it's very representative of that. And that is the 22 cards of the Major Arcana. That's all I have for now, friends. I'll see you all next time.